So we begin this morning in the Middle East as the military carries out a second night of airstrikes against Iran.
Greg Palkot joins us live from London with the latest on Iran. Greg.
Lawrence, Brian, gang. President Trump promised it, and the U.S. military delivered. Another night of airstrikes against Iran. CENTCOM saying some 90 sites were hit, including port cities along the Persian Gulf coast, an airport, and bridges further inland. The second night in a row of U.S. targeting. And that was followed again by Iranian strikes against U.S. military locations in 3 Gulf nations, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. Missiles and drones used in those attacks. All this disruption of the temporary ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. triggered by Iranian hits on 3 ships traveling through the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week. Iran thinks it still has control there. On his way back from a NATO summit in Turkey, here's what President Trump said on Air Force One.
They're sort of crazy, to be honest with you. They're sort of crazy. They're a little bit out of control, but they want to make a deal. Badly.
In response, Iran's top negotiator, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, posted, America still hasn't learned that bullying and breaking promises are no longer cost-free. Let me put it plainly, if you strike, you'll get hit. Actual negotiations between the two sides regarding the 14-point memorandum of understanding had been paused for Iran's funeral proceedings for its former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed in the first days of the conflict. The body, which had been carried in processions in next-door Iraq as well as Iran, is set to be buried today in his hometown of Mashhad. Folks, it's not clear whether all of this means the restart of full-scale conflict. Trump did add that anything that happens is going to happen very fast. Indeed, it is. Back to you.
Well, thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
So what is it, 90, and then the day before 70, so over 150 strikes in 2 days. I'd like to know details of it. We don't have the details of it, but the one thing is pretty clear. Whoever signs the 60 days memorandum of understanding on the Iranian side, they won't have any power. So we should not even pretend that they do. So let's just say the speaker's sincere, the foreign minister's sincere, that they hate us, but they don't want to fight us. They want to be able to unfreeze their funds. They want to be able to sell their oil at market rate. And let's say they want to control the strait, but they know that that would be problematic. The guy that's making the decisions is a guy from the IRGC, this Ahmed Vahidi. So we should not sit down with anybody else. This guy's as evil as it gets. But if we don't deal with him, we should not deal with anyone, because the supreme leader's too scared or too disfigured to come out of his bunker. He doesn't even go to his dad's funeral, so forget about him. So it's about this guy who's running the Quds Force and the IRGC commander. So because either these guys don't control it or they're just talking out of both sides of their mouth, but they refuse, as of this hour, they refuse to give up their gradual control of the strait, which is going to be a fee and toll system. And if you look at the memorandum, the MOU, it says that they're going to be managing this strait. We're not going to allow it. And that's fundamentally what happens. They hit 3 ships, and they have absorbed 150 shots.
So part of the problem is that after we took out all the leaders, at least the first 2 levels, the Iranians had a goal, and the supreme leader left a plan to decentralize power. And I think this is by design. He realized that it would have brought them to the hill, and the IRGC has all the weapons, and they're firing on these shipping containers. And they realize, because of what we've telegraphed through the media, that the gas prices are going to be affected right there. And so they hope to pressure the president to make policy decisions strictly based on the gas price. And I think the president is annoyed with them right now. He realized that they're a bunch of liars. He's always realized that. But I also think there has been credible threats against his life. And it shows, Emily, that the president was quite angered by that yesterday.
Indeed. And he still has economic and many military options. So those that consider this an escalation leading to, quote, war, the reality is that they have quite a large hierarchy of decisions militarily that simply show the Iranians that when you strike, in the words of Vice President J.D. Vance, we will hit the hell out of you back. And the triage necessary right now is to maintain the Strait of Hormuz so that it's not subjected to piracy, right? We have to ensure the economic and the sort of navigable benefit of the Strait of Hormuz, because right now, if Iran is in control, that has that global impact. And when we harness the energy possible from it, then we show we, A, don't need them, but also that the rest of the world is aligned with us in ensuring that they don't hijack it.
If you don't want to be doing this up until November, you got to hit them hard now in July. You know, everyone's like, oh, it's too close to the midterms. They said that in May.
Yeah.
So now it's getting, you know, you hit them hard.
Now it's getting
give them
close.
everything. Now it's getting closer, but still, it's still July. But the smaller hits, let's talk about it, probably work to Iran's behalf, because there's reports that they want to make President Trump Jimmy Carter. They hurt Jimmy Carter, stopped him from getting reelected. Ronald Reagan comes in. They wanted Carter out. They want Trump out. But they can't get him out. But you know what they would do? They would take away a lot of his power by flipping the House and Senate, by making gas prices high. That's why July is so important. That's why 150 strikes shows the president's not more concerned about security than he is gas prices, but he should just hit them hard, and the price of oil goes up, but it'll eventually go down when we solve this problem.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.